Pokemon. It's Glastrier. Remember that one from our Pokedex series? That's the Glastrier we missed.
Yeah, it powered up to be a stellar Pokemon once it has the Ice Rider Calyrex. Yeah, we'll be using that Star Portal. Now, is this a card? We'll have to sort of talk about some of the nitty-gritties of the matchup, but question in my mind right now, will you use that Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX? Now, VMAX Pokemon have that high risk for being 3 prizes, but when you're playing against a deck that your opponent's not going to be taking prizes against you, you could probably utilize that card a little bit more. Hale, you may recognize as well as the Salt Lake City Regional Champion. And yeah, Joseph actually not having too many accomplishments. Had some success in juniors, 2-time regional champion in the top 4 at Worlds, but hasn't been on the big stage in Masters so far. First top 8 here.
First top 8, looking for that big win as well. But I mean, top 8 is already an incredible accomplishment at the biggest regional of the year. And then Hale, of course, no stranger to the big scene. Salt Lake City Regional Champion just this past season, Denver Regional Finalist, 2018 Vancouver Regional Finalist. Guess who played that final against Hale that year?
Who played it?
That was me.
That was you.
I beat Hale in that final, so very familiar with Hale. He's a fantastic player, and he's been around, right? World's top 16 in seniors, so long-time player, and here with his very unique take with Snorlax and Pidgeot EX and a couple extra cards that I hope we get to see in this matchup.
This deck, I don't think a lot of people were on its radar. This deck finished really solid. Of course, Hale is in top cut with this. Also, seniors world champion from last year. Got just outside of top cut with the deck as well. So, you know what? Can be pretty solid here as these players are shuffling up, getting in. I will warn you all at home, we are in for a long game, so you might want to go grab yourself some popcorn or some food and get yourself ready. Prize cards, though, for Control, as having limited ways to access it. Is there anything in here that really screams to you, yeah, this could be bad?
I mean, nothing that it could be bad. The Silene is like the one card that if you manage to create a lock, right, you need that along with a Palpat to potentially make sure that you don't deck yourself out, right? You do have access to no, we don't have Pidgeot V, so Hale gonna be relying on that sort of cycle between Silene and Palpat in order to make sure that he doesn't deck himself out, along with Team Yell's Cheers. So those 2 cards could be important, but there are 2 copies of Peonia to access the prize cards.
Perfect starter for Hale. Snorlax with block. Nobody's moving as long as Snorlax is here. Checking the prize cards, we do see the Tempting Trap Mawile. It's a card that we haven't really seen in Control in a while.
Yeah, Mawile definitely has had a lot of hype previously, but has not been seen in a long time. And I think it suffers the same effect as Snorlax. Like, if you expect Mawile, then you tech for it, but when people don't expect it, it's really hard. And it has the same trapping effect as Snorlax, if you will, also increases the damage. Probably not going to be relevant in this case, but 3 trapping Pokemon. We'll have to see how Hale approaches this matchup.
So Nest Ball being played. Hale checking the prizes. We'll see that one of those Pidgeot EX are unavailable, but besides that, you've got a lot of Pokemon you want to get down. What is your first priority? I have to assume Rotom is probably the first choice just to build up the hand a little bit, but it's actually going to be the Pidgey. So really values having Quick Search. Now, I didn't quite get a chance to see what Hale is sitting on, but I mean, this would make sense if there's something like Rare Candy Pidgeot or maybe an Arven or something for next turn.
There was a Rare Candy Pidgeot in the prize card, so it would be pretty lucky to also have a copy of Rare Candy and Pidgeot in your hand already. There are 2 Pidgeots, there are 3 Rare Candies in the list, and so I'm really wondering, what are Joseph's options going into this match? How many switching cards does he have access to unlock himself from the Snorlax, and how can he deal with Mimikyu? I think that's a big question mark.
Well, how about both, Pablo? Pidgey and the Rotom from the hand, so exactly what you want to see. Drawing up 3 cards. I think at this point, Joseph is going to have to find a way to navigate this as great as possible. And oh no, this hand is not good whatsoever. Now, in this circumstance, it's not as big of a deal since you have time to sort of make your play out. We are going to see the Earthen Vessel. It does get rid of a water energy normally, which is fine, but I feel like, obviously you don't necessarily know if your opponent's playing things like Crushing Hammer in their deck. That isn't a choice so far. Just every resource you get rid of, you have to really always validate and say, do I really necessarily need to thin at this point? How much pressure do I want to put on? That's the big question. I mean, Joseph's deck is designed to be fast, so maybe that's the thought process in his head.
Yeah, it also opens up a Melanie top deck if that happens to be the card he draws next turn. So definitely tough choices all around. The card I'd really like to focus on is Mimikyu, right? Hale does have a copy of Mimikyu. Joseph does play cross switchers in order to play around the Mimikyu. Does play a copy of Canceling Cologne as well to be able to knock out that Mimikyu. But what happens when a second Mimikyu hits the field? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, Radiant Greninja can attack. That is another Pokemon that can deal some damage, but it's at a hefty cost, right? Discarding 2 energy cards. We'll see how things go. Now, we are just going to see the attachment for turn. I mean, can use Rule the Region, but there are no Stadium cards in Joseph's deck, and it will be the Peonia right away. See what prize cards were grabbed for Hale. It is going to be Erica's Rare Candy and Palpad. So knowing that your other Pidgeot's in there, you can sort of hold on to this Rare Candy, and then later down the line, if you can maybe Palpad it back in or flip heads on Silene or even Team Yell's Cheer, you can access that Pidgeot and get Quick Search online, and that's your engine in this deck.
Indeed. Also holding the other Peonia in his hand in case he really wanted to access the other prizes, which I believe he's really favoring. All the cards seem really good in Hale's hand, but I'm not sure what you would want to put back. The counter catcher, I guess, is fine, and then maybe you just try to get access to it again with the other Peonia, which you can do next turn, and you get bonus cards from Rotom. So looking good so far from Hale. Not a lot of pressure incoming from Joseph. Had a very underwhelming turn from what it looked like, right? So we'll have to see.
Mimikyu already in the hand. There's even a Peonia to follow up the following turn. Hale's got to be careful with how many prizes are put in play, especially if your strategy is Mimikyu. Yes, Safeguard is a great ability, but like you said, if there's enough prize on the board, you can sort of gust and navigate around it if so.
Now, that Bravery Charm on the PG is actually very funny. That brings it all the way up to 100 HP. Not sure what that puts it out of range.
Out of Moonlight Shuriken range.
Moonlight Shuriken, okay. Yeah, which is certainly something that could happen next turn, and picking off the Mimikyu as well. So, yeah, I guess I like it.
Yeah, it's sort of a double edge, right? Because if you do put it on the Mimikyu, then it does survive a Moonlight Shuriken. So we'll see how things go. Does find a Nest Ball off the top, and you see right away, wanting to stop Rotom, and it's that Spiritomb. And while it isn't attacking, it's got a great attack that usually is not relevant too much, but Fade Out can pivot it out of the active, so it's not a target to be trapped by Block Snorlax.
Yeah, that's it. Spiritomb is a double benefit for the user. You get to block out this Rotom from using the ability and providing more resources to Hale, and you also get to bring it up in case it gets trapped in the active, as you mentioned. Now, fortunately for Hale, he does have that Pidgeot EX resource, which he now just found off the prize cards with Peonia. Probably we're going to see that, and then you don't mind not drawing 3 extra cards each turn when you can just search for whatever you need as your card for turn.
Now, last choice is what this third card is going to be off of the Peonia. You do take 3, put them into your hand, and then 3 from your hand. Go back into the prizes. But all the prize cards are going to be for Hale at this point is just pieces that he probably really doesn't need to access at this point.
Indeed. It is very important, though, to make sure that you keep track of those prizes in case you need access to one of those cards later down the line. Then maybe you get back Peonia and try to unlock those once again. But yeah, Hale's setup looking pretty fantastic. Joseph wasn't able to apply pressure the previous turn. Both players being very patient here. And it's on Joseph to make something happen here.
And immediately, Luxray, a card that we don't see in the typical Snorlax block deck. A big inclusion for Hale. Of course, it does have that Snipe Fang attack for 2 colorless energy. You deal 30 damage. You look at your opponent's hand, and you can discard any trainer card you find there. And that is a big slowdown, especially against decks that are sort of struggling to set up a little bit. You get rid of some of those switching pieces, can get rid of some of those draw cards, and the more you slow the game down, the more wiggle room you have. This deck really doesn't like to be put on edge super quickly, and with Joseph's slow start, things perfectly here for Hale.
Big top deck, though. Top deck's Melanie, which is pretty good, will get an extra 3 cards, and we might finally see some pressure, although we didn't see any Palkia V-Star get drawn. There is a possibility to Hydro Break for a knockout here. 200 damage. First prize card drawn. How does Hale respond from here? There's not a lot to trap, right?
No, and trapping is sort of tough when you're playing against a deck that plays so many switching cards, right? You have the switch, the escape rope, you have cross switcher, so there's plenty of ways to pivot out. Now, the Pidgeot EX here being promoted is actually really nice. It does have 0 retreat costs, so this could signal with a quick search. If you grab double turbo energy out of the deck, you can use Snipe Fang this turn, and it's actually going to be a tool card that we don't see a lot potentially being grabbed in the deck. I mean, I don't think we've seen this at all. Regardless, it's Defiance Vest, allowing you to take 40 less damage if you're behind on prize cards. And from here on out, Hale will not be taking prize cards, so the card pretty much reads, your Pokemon take 40 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon.
For the rest of the game, yeah, definitely not a very common inclusion. Great combo though, will protect this Luxray this turn, making sure that this Fang Snipe can be used at least 2 turns, maybe even more. However, decides to promote the Rotom to pick it up with Penny.
Yeah, understands at this point that you're not going to be using the Rotom anymore, right? The Spiritom's in play. You kind of have a little bit of flexibility with what supporter card, so you are just going to see that Snipe Fang, and Hale's not going to be too happy about this. I mean, the Cross Switcher and the Canceling Cologne, what choice do you go for at this position? Both cards are solid.
I feel like it has to be the Canceling Cologne. Like, if you make an educated guess on your opponent's 60-card deck list, there's not a lot of good single-price Water-type Pokemon available at the moment. However, chooses the Lost Vacuum. Very interesting choice.
The Vacuum being in hand is actually really good here for Joseph. Can get rid of the Defiance Vest that just came down. And now the question is, can you get yourself to a position to take a knockout here? Now, you can't attack next turn because of Hydro Break being used, so it's actually just going to be a pass, and deciding to bench the Chien Pao EX.
But more importantly, not playing the other Lost Vacuum. Therefore, the Vest remains in play. If you had played it down, then you get to threaten with the potential knockout with Palkia V-Star.
And now that card's most likely just going to be discarded again off of this second Snipe Fang. So a free turn here, quick search being used, can find any card out of the deck. And this is why Pidgeot, when it was released, lots of people had their eyes on this in decks like Charizard, but it has found its home here in Control, being able to find these specific one-of pieces, all these different texts. I mean, this list I'm looking at right now, it's just filled with ones and ones and ones on this screen. One copy of stuff like Boss's Orders, Cheryl to heal things up. They're all these different one-of supporters that you can justify playing in this deck because you have a card that searches out any one specific card from your deck.
Yeah, Pidgeot is that powerful, and you combine it with a lot of these controlling sort of cards, and that's definitely going to be really, really good. Now, I'm really wondering, though, like, your opponent just favored discarding the Lost Vacuum. You have to figure they're going to choose the Lost Vacuum yet again. So that Defiance Vest, I really would have liked to see that hit the Lost Zone the previous turn.
Grabbing the Super Rod right away. Understands that Mimikyu is probably the MVP in this card. Very clearly not going for the block lack strategy. We'll just use this Luxray to get rid of as many pieces as possible. And from there, Mimikyu can maybe start to put on some pressure in terms of just sitting there with Safeguard, as it's actually going to be the V-Guard energy attached. So now this Luxray taking 70 less damage, and it's just going to be the other Lost Vacuum. So like you said, would have liked to see that just get played the previous turn. Now, a different card obviously would have been discarded off of that Snipe Fang, but it would be at the cost of removing Defiance Vest for the rest of the game. Super important that it's being Lost Zone 2. Silene can't even bring it back.
Indeed. Now, Ultra Ball was top deck, so now we do have access to Palkia V-Star. However, Palkia V-Star is right now a worse attacker than Palkia V. Palkia V-Star can do up to 120 damage, I believe, right now. But then you have both the Defiance Vest and the V-Guard energy reducing 70 damage. So 200 damage from Hydro Break is actually more powerful at this point in time. Now, I am wondering, though, what is Joseph planning with this Chien Pao? It's not a very efficient attacker. It requires you to continually power it up with energies, gets rid of energies from the field. So what is happening with that Chien Pao? I don't know what Joseph is planning right here. Maybe a boss KO on the Pidgeot? That could be the plan.
Well, we'll see how things develop. It's going to be another quick search. We'll be saying this lots and lots. Hale's sort of playing to this condition where he wants to set this board up, right? He wants to get all these pieces, and then from there, establish the lock. It's not quite, or rather, establish the loop to make sure to not deck out. It's not quite there yet, right? Joseph has not exhausted very many resources. There's very few cards been played. No Irida yet, or just the one copy of Melody so far. And here we go. It's just going to be the penny. Picking it up, bringing Pidgeot up, and I'm really seeing now how this 0 retreat cost has tons of utility in this deck.
Yeah, 0 retreat cost gives you all the maneuverability you would like. Now, Chenpao is a threat, but you gotta wonder how many I'm sure, like, the questions running through Hale's minds is how many energies does Joseph play? Does he play any ways to recover the energies outside of the Palkia V-Star ability? We're gonna see another Fang Snipe. This was not in my predictions, Ethan.
Not at all. Getting rid of the canceling cologne, I think it's smart to finally get rid of that resource. And I mean, yeah, my thing again is just, how do you stop Mimikyu from just sitting there and taking over the game? It's just, even with Star Portal, I guess you can, over time, maybe put enough energy, but the more energy gets attached to this GM POW, the less of a possibility that becomes.
Exactly. So, and even if you knock out the Pidgeot, right, that's 2 prizes. How do you get the extra 3 prizes? And the big question that I keep asking, how do you deal with Mimikyu? I just don't see an answer. And now that the canceling cologne has been discarded, how do you deal with it? You have Greninja, but then you discard energies, and if that gets recovered, there's no out.
And this Spiritomb, I mean, on paper, yes, it was good early on, but with this Ultra Ball, you could have maybe found something like Luminion V, but you can't play that down now. The Spiritomb, sitting there, originally had a great purpose in shutting Rotom down, but now it's only hurting Joseph.
Indeed. Now, Joseph having no way to shuffle Hale's hand at all other than the Roxanne. But of course, Hale, I mean, honestly, it's looking more likely that Hale wins by prizes at this point after controlling the setup, and Joseph continuing to not evolve, knowing that the Hydro Break is going to be a bigger pressure in terms of damage than the sub-Space Well, since Hale is definitely keeping his bench low, and Joseph has simply not found any other basic Pokemon, really.
Sort of a free turn here for Hale. No damage to move off the board. No reason to play something like Penny if needed, and we see the Misfortune Sisters already in hand. We'll use Quick Search first just to check out the deck. There is also things like Palpad. It will just be another double Turbo Energy brought to the hand. Now, there is nothing like a Psychic Energy, so this Mimikyu can never attack and put pressure on. What could this double Turbo be signaling here, Pablo?
It could be used for Pidgeot to pressure. Could be as backup. I mean, honestly, Hale can just do whatever he wants at this point. He's not really threatened by any sort of damage, and wow, hitting 2 switching effects, switch and cross switcher, and very interestingly, keeping the Battle VIP pass, not choosing to discard that, meaning Joseph can top deck that completely useless card.
Yeah, the condition is deck out, right? That's how this game is going to be won, but Hale understands that at that point, if you have 1 extra card, that's 1 extra turn of me just draw passing, right? It's just not worth giving you an out if you're able to find a line to play in this game. So, smart choice by Hale. Would expect nothing less from him. Are we just going to be seeing another Snipe Fang this turn? And that's just going to be what it is. And I feel like a pretty easy choice. Just get rid of the... I mean, actually, I don't even think you need to get rid of the Cross Switcher at this point. You kind of just can get rid of the Ordinary Rod because your opponent's going to have 1 use of this Cross Switcher. Now, sure, by discarding it, it means that if they top deck another Cross Switcher, they can't play it. But I think the Rod is just fine to go, and that's going to be the choice.
Yeah, Rod helps replenish the deck, and honestly, I don't pretend to be inside of either player's minds, right? But I'm thinking Hale will get this game to a point where Joseph just can never threaten with anything like super powerful. That Mimikyu will just stay in the active, and it's going to be Hale's job to make sure that he doesn't deck himself out, cycling Silene, cycling Palpat, cycling Team Yell's Cheer. Whereas Joseph might be counting on having enough cards left before Hale accomplishes that in order to, maybe with a string of unlucky tail flip on Silene for Hale, he ends up decking Hale out.
Action back over on Hale. Double Penny coming back to the deck, and that can just be Quick Search right away. super powerful synergy between that. Usually you play the Pal Pad, then you have to use
Hope
Rotom to draw through and
yep.
hope to draw it, and that's Pidgeot EX for you. Quick search every turn, find your piece out. We're going to keep seeing things going on. Of course, other top 8 matches are happening right now between things. Penny picking this Pokemon up. I think we're just going to be seeing yet another Snipe Fang, Bravery Charm, Double Turbo Energy. We even see something like Cheryl in this deck, which means, I mean, of course, you can't heal your basic Pokemon, but down the line, even Pidgeot could come up and take a hit and then be healed that way, too.
Now, when Quick Search came out, did you ever expect it to be used in this way?
I had some ideas about control decks that could work. Now, by the time Pidgeot EX came out, there were lots of pieces available, but the issue with control has always been it has so many bases it needs to cover for, right? It has decks with lots of pivoting options, one prize decks. It has decks that can put on aggression really fast, but it seems like Hale has built this deck extremely well to deal with the major threats. I've kind of been running my head through during this game and saying, what could beat it? I guess Giratina is probably the hardest thing because it does do all of those things like I mentioned. But this is no Giratina right here in front of you. This is Origin for Palkia V-Star, and while it is aggressive, it doesn't have the coverage necessary to potentially deal the big damage to Luxray or take down the Mimikyu. Usually, having one of those win conditions is enough for you to win a set, but two, that's really hard to overcome.
All right, now we are going to see the Penny. I feel like Hale has seen Joseph's hand plenty of times. There's 2 cards left in the hand, so I don't expect we're going to see a Luxray, and we're finally going to see the Mimikyu. And this Pokemon can deal with Mimikyu. This Pokemon can deal with Mimikyu. There's only Radiant Greninja, and the Canceling Cologne has already been discarded. So how? How do you get out of this spot as Joseph?
The million-dollar question.
Well, that's one way.
Ooh, Escape Rope being played. Now, I think it's pretty clear you just let this Luxray go down. Now, you can't let your Pidgeot go down. It's just too valuable of a resource. And honestly, with the Luxray going up here, so it has 260 HP, your opponent has to get rid of 5 water energy to take it down, and they still have to take 3 more prizes and get through your Mimikyu.
Yeah, now, bear in mind, we still have the V-Star ability, right, to replenish, but then your number one goal is how do you get this Qian Pao back? There's one switch gone, there's a couple of cross switchers gone, the Escape Rope is gone. Retreating that, and maybe you do that once more, right? How do you do it after a constant barrage of counter catchers?
Big question, Pablo. But for now, it's going to be a 5 energy Hail Blade, 300 damage, taking the knockout on Luxray. Joseph finally putting on some more aggression. He's halfway there, but this final half is going to be a tough hill to climb.
Indeed. Now, Hale just top decks Stormy Mountains. As we see how this game develops, Stormy Mountains is a very unique card. It's not what you would expect in a sort of control deck, but helps you find both Rotom and Luxray V. So pretty cool inclusion by Hale there. I feel like this Snorlax is like the evolved Snorlax, right? The other version of Snorlax is pretty basic. You have 4 Snorlax, you have your Rotom, you draw a lot of cards, you have Mimikyu as well, and you try to disrupt. But this control version, including Pidgeot and that very powerful Quick Search ability, is just amazing to see in action.
Quick Search will grab that second Snorlax, putting it into the hand. Are we going to see a shift in strategy? First it was Snipe Fang. Now, could it possibly be a transition over to blocking the active with Snorlax? We do see the Snorlax come down. This can retreat, and it's actually just going to be the Mimikyu coming into the active. Of course, that safeguard ability we've known through time and time again. Suicune, Sigilyph, you name it. It's been great at shutting out these multi-prize Pokemon as a double heads-off Silene can bring back this Pal Pad and another card of Hale's choice.
That Silene is definitely what Hale needs here to make sure that he never decks before Joseph, and even has the fortune of getting back Misfortune Sisters and making sure that he can continue to attack Joseph resources in the deck.
Now as Mimikyu sits here, passing back and forth, just want to give some quick updates on our other top 8 matches. Azul up 1-0 over Nick. Grant Hayes playing Giratina 1-0 over the other control deck, Cal Connor. Grant Manley winning game 1 over Dan Hugar. So both Charizard players going up a game in this set. And the other lacks On the completely, it seems, opposite side of things, down a game, down against the wall, Hale is doing exactly what he wants here, finding 2 cards off of this Misfortune Sisters. It is another one of those switch. The Urn of Vitality, or rather the Earthen Vessel, is a good card. It can find those energies out. It's definitely a little bit more playable than Battle Pass, so Hale understands, yeah, I've got to deck you out eventually, so I might as well get rid of these cards.
Indeed. And now, this Qian Bao, of course, it unlocked a 1-hit KO on the very annoying Luxray. Was it a little too late, though? Would have been nicer to perhaps knock out the Pidgeot, but does Joseph have enough resources to get this Qian Bao out of the active? Right now, he can retreat, right? But at a very costly cost.
Top deck was for turn an Escape Rope. Now, this is a really minor play, but I would have actually liked to see the Escape Rope played before the Mew was benched. That way you kind of put your opponent in a situation. If they bring Snorlax up, the damage from Subspace Well isn't quite there yet, so you'd have to bench another Pokemon. However, at this point, it seems the Hale is just okay letting the Snorlax go down. Just going to take the knockout, and Heavy Ball will also be played. This can find the Calyrex if Joseph wants to, but, I mean, Ice Rider just isn't a great attacker when your opponent's limiting their bench. That Ride of the High King is only going to be doing 70 to maybe max 100 damage.
Now, let me play devil's advocate a little bit here on why benching the Mew is a pretty big deal. Because then, if Hale ends up promoting this Pidgeot EX, Palkia V-Star you could have promoted the Mew EX, retreat into the Qian Bao, right? Power up, and then you can 1-hit KO the Pidgeot EX. How do you take that last prize card on the Mimikyu? That's a whole other question,
sure.
But that could have been a way for Joseph to perhaps close out this game.
I feel like that's a way that you can sort of, I don't know if bait is the right word, but you can maybe force your opponent to maybe get greedy, right? Go after those prize cards and do that. I would have actually been okay to see that be the line, right? Just kind of let your opponent go for that play. Yeah, sure, you can take my Pidgeot out, but I'm just going to sit here with Mimikyu and pass. So Joseph is 2 prizes away. Now, the thing to note, with the V-Star power not being used yet, and this Pidgeot EX, there's no way to remove Pidgeot out of play. So Joseph may have actually found a way to navigate through this. With the V-Star power, if there's a switching card and a boss's orders, that can take a knockout on the Pidgeot. So my main question here is, that Snorlax bench, it really didn't seem too inconsequential a few turns ago, but that extra prize being taken changes everything in this game.
Yeah, and I think now we need to see Snorlax yet again, and Mew might be the Pokemon that needs to be trapped in the active. Mew doesn't threaten any attack, really. It requires 3 manual energy attachments because Star Portal can only attach water energies to a water-type Pokemon, so trapping this Mew EX with Counter Catcher and with Snorlax is probably what Hale needs to do at this point in time.
It will be the Stormy Mountains. That's a card I haven't seen in a while get played down. It feels like we're all the way back in the EU regulation of Evolving Skies. As Luxray is actually going to be the choice to come down. Could this signal another Snipe Fang potentially? You could still bring up this No, you can't, though, because if you bring the Qianpao up, then you just Star Portal the energies onto it, and no matter what stands in its way, it doesn't matter if you have Defiance Vest, V-Guard, that Pokemon is going down.
Yeah, with this Bravery Charm, does require 6 energies?
No, 5 energy will get there. 5 will be 300, so. Now, the issue here, though, is you can't retreat and use the attack because it's going to be only max 4, right? You can find 1 energy out of the deck, so.
But you can pressure, though. You can pressure with Palkia. That's a solid amount of damage.
Absolutely. Our first update from Top 8, Grant Hayes wins 2-0 over Calvin Cotter, advancing to Top 4, taking down a stall deck in its path. Things have developed here. I mean, this has been a long game so far, but ladies and gentlemen, you guys voted for this. You guys knew what you were up for as you selected a game. Quick search being used, grabbing any card out of the deck. For Hale, you've got a few threats to think about. I feel like Penny's got to be number 1 on your list. Now, Hale, by using that Snipe Fang, yes, it did get rid of that Earthen Vessel. Not too relevant of a trainer, but he got hand information. He now knows every card in Joseph's hand except for that top deck, and if it was a card played to win the game, Joseph would have just played that card to take the game down.
Now, does feel like Joseph is so close, right? He must have a plan. There must be something we're missing here because there has to be a combination of cards that allows Joseph to win. Could be as simple as cross switcher plus boss, and Hale definitely cannot risk going for the Luxray anymore because that could lead to him getting KO'd. Joseph takes the last two prizes. Cianirida, is there something that helps Hale? I believe there's two cross switchers available. So if Joseph eventually top decks one double cross switcher into the Pidgeot, Star Portal, KO with Chen Bao, is the line to win?
I actually like this play of Joseph just holding the Irida in hand. Yes, there's the risk for it to get Snipe Fanged and knocked out, but if you find one of those pieces, like one of those cross switcher off the top of the deck, like one of those Escape Rope or Switch cards, for example, you can find a way to just grab the other piece with Irida and close this game out. So I think Joseph's just going to kind of play this bluff game of, yeah, you don't need to Snipe Fang me. You saw my hand. Nothing's going on here. I'm not plotting anything. But it really will come down to that Pidgeot EX. Yes, it's been great at searching Hale out, all of these support Pokemon, but will it be his downfall in this game? Being those two prizes, 280 HP, can Joseph put together the math to take a knockout on this Pokemon?
I feel like the downfall might have been that Snorlax that got benched, right? If it was just Mimikyu on the bench, if it was just, even a couple Mimikyus, which no Snorlax deck has been playing. Maybe double Mimikyu is the way forward for Snorlax eventually, but we're going to see Peonia get grabbed. So Hale needing to access something from the prize cards that he prized previously. This is very interesting, right? You choose some cards in the beginning to prize yourself, right? That's a dream, right? You choosing which cards to prize, but now seems like he will need to unlock something from there.
Sort of pausing a little bit, thinking, maybe kind of just thinking about what, or looks like having a discussion with one of the judges. So we're making sure everything is set and good, as it will be the Peonia. So I'd be really interested to see what prizes are being grabbed, what prizes are being put back into the deck, or rather into the hand. It is going to be the Erica, double Turbo Energy, and Counter Catcher. So what does this
Hale must have known which prizes he was grabbing.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. He's got full information of all six.
Yeah, so could Hale just go for a knockout on the Palkia V-Star with two attacks off Pidgeot, maybe? Is that ever the plan?
It's so risky, though, because if you bring Pidgeot up, all your opponent needs to do is, the problem at this point is it's not open lists, right? So Hale doesn't know how many Switch Joseph has played. Now, two have been discarded already, but, it could totally be reasonable to see more than that. Hold on, though. Is just going to attack with this Pidgeot, keep the stadium in play. Now, Joseph is playing how many Switch? Oh, there's only two Switch in the deck. I believe both have been discarded. Now, is there a way for... I'm trying to think. You can... No, if there was a Melanie, potentially, you could Melanie retreat and then attach for turn, Star Portal, and then that would get you there.
Melanie top deck!
Is that it? Is that what you need to do? I think it's guaranteed because you can retreat and you can
to Chen Pao search for the energies. What a card!
Way.
Are there energies left? Wow!
I believe the math is there. Hasn't used Star Portal yet. The Chien Pao can search this energy out. I think Joseph's just going to double check. Yep.
Double check on the energies.
Play the Ultra Ball. Is there an energy in the deck?
I think that's it.
No,
no energy left in the deck. What are there any left prized?
Can we see the prizes?
I think there must be one energy in the prize cards.
I think the last energy might be in the...
So
it
close.
is!
It is. The 8th energy is in the prize cards. What a top deck. What a hype into deflating moment.
It was so close, the perfect top deck for Joseph. But because that last energy is prized, we'll be one energy short of taking this knockout. And not only that, but this Palkia V-Star is under immense pressure. Next turn can potentially go down to a variety of attacks. Right now it has close to enough damage to being knocked out, unless we're missing some math here. Hold on. No, there's not because of the last energy. It's 4.
So I think Joseph considered retreating, but just attacking into a Pidgeot means by benching that other Palkia, if Hale takes a knockout on the Palkia V-Star, then you just Star Portal and win the game, right? So Hale needs now to find a way to potentially heal this Pidgeot, but wow, that energy being at the very top of the prize cards, just wow. Yeah, that could have been game one sealed for Joseph with that incredible top deck as we see the Cheryl heal off the Pidgeot. 3 energies gone for Joseph. That's going to be a heartbreaking moment.
And a complete 180 was one piece away for Joseph to win this game, and now is in almost a terrible spot at this point. I mean, yes, the Mew can come up. Yes, you still have access to Palkia V-Star. Oh, wait. Are the pieces here? No, it's still not.
Back-to-back Melanies, though.
Yeah.
Back-to-back Melanies into the Star Portal, into attacking the Pidgeot.
So that's why I sort of wonder in that position if it was just better to retreat into something like the Chien
maybe
Pao and
conserve
just
that energy because he did top deck the Melanie yet again.
It would be there. The pieces would be there if you didn't just sacrifice the 3 energy to go down, as Ultra Ball will be played. Now let's see what resources are available. Both Cross Switcher are still in the deck, and there is one more copy of Melody. Suicune V could potentially get grabbed. Now, I don't hate Suicune. You get to just fleet-footed every turn and draw an extra card, especially if your condition is to play something else. Now, it will actually be the Lumineon. Now, Luminous Sign can't be used because, of course, the Spiritomb V, Fettered and Misfortune, is blocking it. But oh, and I guess the Fettered and Misfortune also blocks Fleet-footed, so you can't use that either, even if you wanted to.
All right, I think Joseph actually has the perfect combination of cards to win this game. Eventually, he will draw a Melanie, which cannot be affected, right, by the Misfortune Sisters. And eventually, he will have access to Boss's Order. So as long as the Chien Pao is in the active spot, he can go Melanie onto the Palkia, start Portal onto the Chien Pao EX, and then the turn after, Boss's Orders knock out the Pidgeot EX. Probably not start Portal preemptively, but whenever Joseph finds a Melanie, all he will need is Boss's Orders to win this game. And there's no threat of being trapped with like the Mew or perhaps even the Spiritomb. However, if Hale gets a read on this, right? If Hale gets a read that Joseph is missing a water energy and doesn't have any available, Star Portal and Melanie cannot attach to the Spiritomb.
That's true. You could also just block the Mew up, but I mean, the biggest issue here is that Joseph still has 2 Cross Switcher in deck. So the Cross Switcher can still switch the Spiritomb out of the active.
True. Yeah. And if the Mew is active, right, you can go Boss on the Pidgeot, and now it's not blocked, right?
Yes.
You can retreat, so.
The Cross Switcher being there is the main thing, right? If it was just Boss left in the deck, then yes, absolutely, the Spiritomb can get blocked. But that switching effect to switch your own active out is still a big deal.
Seems like Joseph definitely had this match, like, pretty under control, right, for the most part. Now, Joseph does have 2 Iridas. I wonder if he's choosing not to play Irida to make sure that he doesn't have the Cross Switcher in hand, and then that gets taken away by a Luxray.
I thought we were going to see Pidgeot attack there to just put pressure on this Palkia to just get that energy out of play.
Oh. No, stop. Oh, my.
Okay.
Yes. All right, that was a close call. That was definitely a close call. Oh, I think
is that
Joseph,
a big deal now for putting that Lumini? I mean, okay, so you can technically Star Portal onto it.
Joseph does the Defiance Vest stop damage from rule box or from any Pokemon?
I think it's all. It's just 40. It's 40 damage.
So we can't Melanie retreat Star Portal onto Greninja to win the game, right? By knocking out Nawal and Mimikyu.
Yeah, it's 40 from everything. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So that Luminion, it could be I mean, even the Mimikyu could get trapped at this point, right? But Luminion is definitely an easier, like, hey, this Pokemon can definitely be problematic.
This is the issue, though. If Misfortune Sister hits these Cross Switcher, double Cross Switcher hit off the Misfortune Sisters, a perfect 2 cards to discard. Oh, it's just going to get rid of the 1? This is actually a smart play.
There's 3 left. There's 3 in the discard, right? So you don't need to discard that 4th because now it's as good as a Battle VIP pass. And Joseph recognizes that that was his win condition. And Hale Obernolte wins game 1 in a very, very interesting game 1.
That was as back and forth I think a control matchup can be, right? Just that 1 energy card short with the top deck Melanie, but it was in those final 2 prize cards. And jeez, I mean, at least for your mental, right? You're so close to winning that game. Your card is prized. You're now down 1-0 in top 8. Pablo, as you're going to this game, what do you have to tell yourself to keep yourself focused in a crucial match? You're down a lot of time. What's going through your head?
I mean, clearly Joseph has a plan against Snorlax. Clearly Joseph knows what he's trying to do, and therefore he just needs to do it again, right? Just as long as he has access to that energy that remained in the prize cards the whole game. If he had that energy, he would have won 3 turns ago, right? So if you can do that again, then what happens? You go into a game 3, and as long as you take a prize card, you are going to win the overall top 8. That is one of the issues of playing control decks. And that Cheryl, though, that Cheryl was so key.
A big key card, not one you'd expect when you're only playing one evolution Pokemon, but it acts as essentially a 5th penny sometimes. Just another way to heal your Pokemon up. And Mimikyu, it sat there menacingly, didn't need to really do anything or block things. Kind of just sat there in the active, doing what it does as the disguise. And that final cross switcher getting discarded was the nail in the coffin for Joseph.
The Misfortune Sisters living up to their name, being Joseph's Misfortune this time around. And now a big card, the Canceling Cologne, and an Escape Rope at the very top. Neither card favoring Joseph here because they're 2 very important resources from him to advance and get out of the lock and potentially deal with a Mimikyu.
So Joseph will kick things off to start that Chien Pao, so we'll at least get some of those water energy into play, into the hands. The Luxray V start as well over on Hale's side.
Interesting that Joseph chose to go first, though. Really favoring. We saw that as well in his previous stream match. He really favors going first. Now, I got a look at Hale's hand. I don't believe there's anything very good. There is the Hisuian Heavy Ball, but there wasn't any Pokemon prize, was there?
I believe a Pidgey was in the prize card, so at least you can grab the Pidgey out, but Pidgey's not enough to win you the game here.
Exactly, yeah.
Snipe Fang can slow things down a little bit for sure, but it's going to be a little bit of an ask. Nothing like Battle VIP Pass, though, because the deck's being shuffled here after this Shivery Chill. We'll see the Palkia come down. There's the energy attachment for turn. And it's just going to be a pass over. So, wow. That's a big top deck, though.
Big top deck for
the
Hale.
Arven, and that will allow Hale to get things rolling. Gets the peep at the prize cards. We'll be able to get the Pidgey out. There is one Peonia, but as long as you play the other one, you can still access these prize cards.
What a top deck for Hale. I mean, you had the Pidgey to potentially survive, but you have 4 Arvens. You get that off the top. Now you're going to be able to... Oh my. Almost shuffle the prize cards.
It's good. The prizes
deck.
are at the bottom, so this will be reversible.
We also have pictures of the prize cards, so we can pick the cards and set them aside.
Don't shuffle. Oh, did they put the prizes back?
Yeah, they put the prizes back. They put the prizes back, and we also have pictures of the prize cards.
Sure,
so worst case scenario, we take a look at the picture of the prize cards, we grab the cards, put them back. Now, we do have some news from top 8 here. Azul defeats Nick Robinson. Grant Manley defeats Dan Hugar and Grant Hayes. So this is the match that we're waiting for to decide our top 4.
What a top 4 it's going to be regardless. A stacked top 4 here in San Antonio as you'll see Arven get played. Now, Hale isn't playing anything like a copy of Battle VIP passes, just playing Nest Ball to get these Pokemon out into play. So we'll look to grab the Nest Ball and the Forest Seal Stone as well. Now, we saw Rotom had great use on that first turn, but once Rotom comes in, or once the Spiritomb comes into play, you're really not going to get the value you want. But Hale still says, look, my hand is pretty weak. I need to draw cards. Yes, Snipe Fang would be nice here to maybe get rid of some trainers, but that won't matter if you still have a strong enough start and can put on some pressure quickly.
Rotom being very key. You do have to decide whether you disrupt or draw. I feel like draw is the way to go here for sure. You need that Pidgeot. Once you have Pidgeot set up, you're fully under control. But before that, can be a little dicey.
So Bravery Charm coming down yet again onto the Pidgey. Really values just not losing that piece in the second turn, as it will just be an instant charge from the Rotom. As action back on Joseph. Now, there is a 2-prize Pokemon staring this down in the active spot, but I don't really necessarily know if you need to go super aggressive right now. Just going to fill the hand up with a bunch of energy cards. Second one being attached for turn. I mean, listen, as long as you just attach once every turn and just build this up, Hale's not playing any way to discard energy cards, rather basic energy cards off of Joseph's side. So we saw how that patient waiting game played out well for Joseph in game 1, pending those prize cards.
Now, there is a Melanie in the hand, so I feel like you could potentially discard one, deal 60 damage, and that will allow you to Melanie next turn. I think there's a little merit to that. The 60 damage also makes it a kinder knockout for Palkia V-Star, but looks like we're debating playing the Luminion probably for an Irida or the boss's orders, just aggressively targeting the Pidgey to deny the Pidgeot.
So this will require one more energy to be discarded thanks to that Bravery Charm, but it's a small price to ask for when you're slowing this engine down. Now, I think this in combination with a Spiritomb coming down
that would have been the dream
would
for
have
sure.
been excellent, but one piece short means that Rotom will still be able to instant charge away next turn. There isn't really much going on in this hand now. There is a Boss's Orders, Misfortune Sisters, Snorlax the top deck for turn. Could be arguing going after this Luminion on the bench, bringing that up, maybe disrupting the hand a little bit, but I don't know if you can necessarily afford to disrupt when your hand is just not where you want it to be in terms of size. It will be the Boss's Orders, choosing what to bring up off of the bench. I feel like if you're trying to slow things down, it might be Luminion, but it is actually going to be the Palkia, so not even going to use Instant Charge with sort of how little in cards this is. It's just going to be the Snipe Fang. Does have the option to get rid of either the Melanie or the Cross Switcher, or rather, yeah, the Melanie Cross Switcher. Earthen Vessel really isn't on the table. I feel like Cross Switcher is probably your best bet at this point.
Yeah, does choose the Cross Switcher. I don't know, though. I really fancied the Melanie because then, I mean, it's almost like denying a research right now.
Yeah.
Joseph gets to draw extra cards. If Joseph is able to establish the Spiritomb whilst applying pressure on the active Pokemon, that could be really, really powerful. However, no Palkia V-Star in sight.
No, there is one in the hand.
Oh, there is. It's
I get tricked by the...
Yeah, the golden Palkia V-Star. Definitely not what I expect to see.
A grand parade for a grand Pokemon. The question here, you've got to just... Do you commit? Now, the way I see it is if it's a 2-hit knockout regardless, you might as well just evolve and put it into play now. More Pokemon can get benched, especially if you're... The Luminion technically can't get locked because you can always use Aqua Return and get it out of play, but it's just going to be 120 damage onto this Luxray. Things like Defiance Vest are now available, so that can stop the math from taking knockouts. There's an Arven top deck for turn.
Yeah, exactly. That Arven top deck could fetch that Defiance Vest, as you mentioned. Now, Joseph does have the possibility to bench that Suicune, has Irida as well to search for other Pokemon, so can still get this KO. And I wonder if Hale would have had a better time just using Rotom instead of trying to disrupt. I feel like Hale is against the ropes. You have time to disrupt when you are in control of what resources you have access to each turn, and this is not the case right now with no Pidgeot in sight.
And the problem is, if you want to Snipe Fang again, it's another turn of you not using Rotom, which is one more turn for Joseph to now get down Spiritomb into play and shut that off as an option. And it will mean that Hale will have to commit a supporter one turn to getting Rotom V out of play.
What a game we are seeing. Like, I know in terms of action, Pokemon knocking out each other, it's not, there's not a lot going on, but so many mind games, so much decisions, and I really like this Mimikyu by Hale. I think that's one way that he will be able to really stop Joseph, especially after discarding this cross switcher right here and the boss's orders also being gone. How many times can Joseph deal with this Mimikyu? And unfortunately for Joseph, that canceling Cologne is at the very top of the deck.
Now the Defiance Vest is played down. I hope Joseph learned his lesson from game one and just plays this Lost Vacuum. It's just so worth it to get rid of this Defiance Vest out of play. But it looks like he's instead going to use that card just to discard with the Earthen Vessel. I feel like just getting that option of out of play means Penny can't pick it up and put it back in. It's just going to be grabbing the 2 water energy out of the deck with Earthen Vessel. Slowly building this board up. Now, one thing to note though, hold on. If there is something like a Lost Vacuum, which we know there is, and a Radiant Greninja, both of those cards in combination can take a 3-prize knockout on the Mimikyu and the Luxray. But Joseph isn't going to go for that, just going to pass the turn over.
Indeed. So Joseph being very patient with his plans, has that Lost Vacuum, does have an Irida, I believe, in hand. So that could have been a way to search for the Greninja. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to see the Forest Seal Stone. which is Pidgeot for one turn, essentially.
Sure.
So, what was the card pick? Did you get to see it? That was so fast.
It was. It's like he knew exactly what he wanted to grab
It's
before
almost
using
like
the
he's
force
already
field.
planning what he's trying to do during his turn.
I think maybe the reason for Joseph not playing the Irida that turn is, assuming the board stays the same, next turn with one more energy attachment, Escape Rope means that you can essentially knock out whatever Pokemon comes up in the active. But Pidgey coming down into play, and the Penny picking up this Luxray off of the board. It looks like there actually is no Irida in
No
the hand for
Irida.
Joseph, so
I
that
must
isn't
have
an option.
imagined it.
And putting the Snorlax into play again, a card that almost costed Hale that first game, and it's just going to be an instant charge and a top deck Spiritomb for turn. Rotom is offline, no more power connected to it. As the energy is put onto Chien-Pao, it's just going to be passing back and forth.
Now look how powerful this Mimikyu is, but now we're going to see the Pidgeot EX finally hit play. Hale did take a risk there. Both of these Pokemon were at risk of getting sniped by Radiant Greninja last turn, as you were mentioning. Maybe that's why Joseph could have held on to that play, but of course, one Irida away, one Nespel away from actually pulling that off. And now Hale looks to be in commanding position in this game. Only one prize down. No answers for the Mimikyu inside. Joseph has only drawn past after attaching a turn. How do you get out of this spot?
It's tough. Can use the supporter card to pick up Rotom. As soon as Spiritomb comes down, Rotom is out of play. Puts the Bravery Charm on Snorlax, and here we go. Passing to start things off. Does top deck the Irida.
One turn too late.
Yeah.
One turn too late. That's so heartbreaking for Joseph. I feel like he's been on the rougher end of things in terms of logs. That energy being prized that cost him game one. Irida, one turn too late.
It's tough. I'm not sure you even play the Irida in this spot until maybe you can find double cross switcher and go after this Pidgeot, but just going to play the Irida right now. I mean, this can grab something like the Switch, like the Escape Rope to bring up one of these bench Pokemon, but it is actually going to be the Radiant Greninja brought up to the top. That is a Pokemon that is probably going to be the most helpful water Pokemon in your deck to get through this Mimikyu, to give yourself the options. But yeah, that turn before would have had so much value, getting rid of the Quick Search from being online the following turn.
That would have been so huge, but now it's too late. That humongous 280 HP can really only be dealt with by Chien-Pao, and that's such a high cost. Now, we are going to see the Escape Rope. We are going to see the Radiant Greninja, so something is either getting knocked out, aka the Snorlax, or the Pidgeot will be damaged. I wonder what Pokemon Hale will bring up if this Escape Rope gets played.
I feel like it's got to be the Snorlax. There's 5 energy on board, right, with this Chien-Pao. You can't really risk your opponent just taking that threat that you've built up, took so much time to build it. And the biggest risk, too, is any turn you play Pidgey down is the turn that it can be targeted, essentially, right? It can be targeted around block, it can be targeted via cross switcher. Now, if there is going to be a rope played, I would like to see the rope played first just to see what the options look like. But it's actually going to be a retreat into this Greninja. And here we go. Finally finding an answer to deal with this Mimikyu. Star Portal, V-Star Power, used for Joseph. 3 water energy onto this Radiant Greninja. And it's going to be the 90 damage to this Mimikyu and the 90 to this Pidgeot. A solid play that puts it in range for the following turn to be knocked out.
Indeed. Now, still canceling Kelowna Escape Rope at the very top of the prize cards. So if that Mimikyu, eventually gets super outed, eventually gets Team Yells cheered, and now you can just quick search for it, dealing with one Mimikyu is feasible. How do you deal with 2? You need to repower up the Radiant Greninja, but you already exhausted your V-Star ability. You need to manually attach, and then you get to discard 2 energies once more. You play a total of 8. I don't think you have enough energies to pull this off.
Yeah, especially if you can put back something like a Bravery Charm on it, now that you've played the Lost Vacuums. I mean, let's do the math here, right? We're going to look through the discard pile. There's 2 in the discard pile. There's 4 in play. That leaves 2 left. You can use Moonlight Shuriken one more time, but what happens if you play a Silene, for example, flip heads, and now your Mimikyu goes back on top of your deck?
Yeah, Team Yell's cheer. Just put back the Mimikyu. No need to wait.
Now, we do see Cross Switcher. I feel like you always just get rid of the Cross Switcher. And yeah, Switch is another great card. Both of those hitting the discard pile. There's been a lot of luck on Hale's side when it comes to Misfortune Sisters.
Those Misfortune Sisters have definitely been more fortunate for one player than the other, and it's Mimikyu time, yeah? I feel like this is definitely something Hale could have maybe tried a little bit more the previous game. He kept doing all these like fancy control things, but ask your opponent, how do you deal with multiple Mimikyus?
Now, both Water Energy are in hand. The risk is, I mean, I guess you have Melanie to accelerate energy into play, right? So bringing up the Palkia doesn't really matter. Can eventually attack if you play enough Melanie. It's just going to be the manual attachment and the pass over. Quick Search can be used. Hale, I think, has a plan to be able to be fine with one more of these Moonlight Shurikens in play if he can just put another Pokemon in, even use Block to trap this Snorlax, or rather to trap this Greninja if there's enough switching cards exhausted over on Joseph's side.
Indeed, you can easily trap the Greninja. Now that this 7th energy has been committed, you can even trap the Luminion, right? Because, well, I guess you can Melanie onto it, and that actually would be problematic, so never mind. You don't want to see that Luminion come up to the active spot.
So Hale grabbing another card off Quick Search. This Pidgeot is definitely pulling its weight in Hale's top 8 match. Just over 23 minutes left on the clock, so like you said, it's now or never for Joseph. Finish this game out, get the win, force a game 3, or struggle trying.
23 minutes left on the clock. It definitely feels like Joseph needs to make something happen very quickly here. Hale playing the counter catcher, bring up the Palkia V-Star, knows that Joseph has committed a lot of energies to the field, 1 in the discard pile, 5 in play, 1 in hand, so 1 left over. And 2 in the discard pile, sorry. So 1 energy total left over. Joseph needs to find a Melanie very soon, and then he'll be able to retreat. And that's it, because that Mimikyu is a big problem for this deck, and for many decks, really.
Safeguard is strong. No one's surprised about that. It's a strong ability. We saw Miltank C play with it before. We saw Pokemon over Pokemon use it. I mean, my worst memory with Safeguard has got to be Hoopa, the Shining Legends Hoopa, and that. Just as I was starting to really get back into things, that was a card that walled out. Do you have a favorite Safeguard Pokemon that you've used?
So I've always been a big fan of the Suicune.
Okay.
I really liked the Suicune back then. But I was also a big fan of the Hoopa, and I feel like there was a Hoopa Umbreon deck that was very, very underrated. You could aggressively target down the single price Pokemon that could deal with Hoopa, and you just promote the Hoopa, and even the Hoopa could attack, so aggro Hoopa was actually a thing.
Never knew 80 damage for 3 could be so good. Now at the present, though, we are here at a crucial turn. There it is, 90 damage on the Mimikyu, taking the knockout. Joseph going down to just 2 prize cards left. But the big question, is there, or 3 prize cards left, excuse me, is there enough gas in the tank for Hale? Especially with the Snorlax in the active spot, if Joseph doesn't have any more switching cards left. We do know that Escape Rope is in the prize cards. We've seen a switch or 2 get discarded with the Misfortune Sisters. Let's see if we can take a look here.
I think one switch,
and
2 cross switchers, so.
I think the Escape Rope that was grabbed off the Melanie is still, or the Irida is actually still in the hand. We haven't seen it get played.
It just got played.
Oh, it just got played.
Yeah, it just got played.
To put it back in,
turn.
yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I think there is 1 switch left, but you need to combine that with like a couple Melanies, or are you going to attack with Qianbao, and then that requires you to get rid of all 4 energies to knock out the Snorlax, and then you're completely out of energies. How do you close out the game at that point?
Tough predicament, but if anybody can do it, it's Joseph. Has piloted this deck excellently throughout this weekend.
There is a Super Rod left. There is a Super Rod left for Joseph, so that could be a way you can recover.
True.
I mean, it might come down to the luck of the Misfortune Sisters, right? Misfortune Sisters, such a powerful card, and we are going to see perhaps a Silene or a Palpad get those cards back. I mean, Hale did get a good look at Joseph's deck the previous game.
Big
right?
flips here. Double tails! That's a big double tails. It means Mimikyu can't come back into the deck, and that's going to force Hale to put down another block Snorlax onto the bench to prevent, again, Escape Rope from winning the game.
Now, did see a pass, but Judge is mentioning something to Hale right now, I believe. That's why we have a slight pause in the game. We'll have to find out and let you all know what is going on with the game.
Oh, looks like we're good. All right, well, action's back over on Joseph's side. Oh, is it a... Oh, maybe it was a pace of play warning. I'm not quite sure at this point. We are just going to see the switch grabbed off Irida. Oh, okay. We'll take a look. Yeah, so it looks like there was... So I'll get confirmation on this here. I believe a double prize penalty was given because of a pace of play. So because of that, it looks like there was one more pace of play issue, and it was a double prize card penalty, which means that Joseph had to just take one more prize card to win the game. And that's huge because we have 19 minutes left in this game 3.
Yeah, 19 minutes, and then how are we going to determine who ends up taking this match, right? If the game has not completed, it's whoever's up in prizes. So pace of play, very important to keep it up, right? It's important to think through your plays, but you also have to play at a very reasonable pace.
That's so heartbreaking for Hale. You're pretty much close to locked up at that game. I mean, yes, the switch card still was there, but over time that can get milled with Misfortune Sisters. Wow. Big game 3 coming up. The door just swung wide open for Joseph in this game 3.
Now, seems like Hale will be going first in this game 3, and now we have very little time on the clock. I don't think a deck out is in the cards for Hale here, and it's on Joseph. If Joseph is able to take a prize card, or we might actually see aggro Pidgeot here. Wow,
what?
Triple rare candy
That's
in
all
the prize
3.
cards.
No way. Okay. Hold on. I think we're going to see a Hisuian Heavy Ball play first, and Hale's going to get the bad news. You see him shaking his head like, come on. In the most crucial match of my tournament, all 3 rare candy
Starting a
are
Pidgey
unavailable.
as well.
Wait, is there? There's no... Okay, there. Oh, hold on. Didn't think there were Pokemon yet. There is a Stormy Mountain, so this can find the Rotom V to get that going, but...
I mean, even if you get going, right? Even if you start controlling, eventually Joseph will take one prize card, whether it's Greninja, knocking out Mimikyu in the active, whether it's knocking out a Snorlax or a Pidgeot. This is going to be very difficult for Hale to pull off.
I think if you're Joseph, you're happy to just sort of play things out normally. You don't really need to play fast. It's take your prize card that you're pretty much given on one of these Pokemon eventually, and the last thing you want to do, right, is get ahead of yourself, right? Think fast, play to these routes, because if you do put yourself in a situation where you can truly get locked and make no more actions, that's when trouble starts, right? Draw pass, draw pass, draw pass, and those actions only take a couple seconds. From there, you can quickly deck out. So we are just going to see Rule the Region, does get the Collapse Stadium out. The hand really not looking too solid for Joseph, but feels like, Pablo, that it's almost inevitable, just a matter of time.
It's almost a matter of time, as you mentioned. Like, if your plan was to go aggro Pidgeot EX, how do you do that with no rare candies available? That's going to be very problematic.
We are going to see the Forest Sealstone, maybe for the Peonia, after seeing those 3 rare candy in the prize cards. Now, there is a world where you play the Peonia and the 3 prize cards that you don't take are all 3 rare candy. We'll have to see what 3 prize cards get. That would just be, that would make me sick to my stomach there.
Now, Joseph's hand is actually not super great. There's no draw supporters. There's not a lot of resources. Not even a follow-up energy at this point.
It was the 3 cards. I cursed it.
The caster curse. What? Look at that. The 3 rare candies remain.
No way.
None of them picked. Now Hale needs another Peonia to unlock any of those rare candies. How unlucky can you get?
I'd like to formally apologize to Hale and anybody affected by this. That's so... I need somebody to run the math on that. That's so improbable for the 3 prize cards you don't take to all be rare candy.
So how do you go about this at this point? You lock with Mimikyu. There's no access to Pidgey. I mean, Hale's composure has not faltered, right? Like, if you're Joseph, you have no idea that there's 3 rare candies in the prize cards at this point in time. And we do see the draw with the Rotom, Mimikyu in the active. Big top deck for Joseph, and Irida into the hand.
Yeah, there's 2 cross-switcher there as well. So if you really do want to, you can grab yourself another water-type Pokemon, even something like the Chien Pao. I wouldn't even... I don't know if I would see that quite yet. I think Earthen Vessel is probably just a better card to grab since you get the water energies in play. You can slowly start building up this Palkia, and it's really a big risk to put Luxray down because Luxray is a Pokemon that doesn't have a lot of HP. Even with a Bravery Charm, 260, that's something that Palkia V-Star can possibly hit over time. That's something that GM Pal can possibly hit.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Joseph can pull off the Radiant Greninja attack this turn. Can Earthen Vessel for 2 energy, conceal cards away one of them, attach the other to retreat into the Greninja, and then Giant Water Shuriken, Moonlight Shuriken, both Mimikyu and Pidgey. This turn.
Do you just go on the gas here in this position?
Well, I mean, you just need to take prizes. You know Hale is not going to knock out your Pokemon, essentially. So all you need to do is be up in prizes when the game runs out. And if you're trying to win a long game, if you will, knocking out the Pidgey, right? Denying the Pidgey. That's been part of Joseph's strategy this whole time, and he could do it right now.
Even just benching Greninja here and just drawing some cards, seeing your options, seeing what that looks like is okay in this position, I feel like. You're going to eventually go through these energies. You can understand you're probably not going to take all 6 prize cards this game. Wow, what a great 2 cards there. Finds Melody as well, so that could be acceleration for the following turn. As here we go. Energy attachment for turn, retreating into the Chien Pao. This can also use Shivery Chill to find 2 more energy.
Okay.
So I actually don't know if I'm a huge fan of... So that really is the question, Pablo. Do you value an extra 2 energy cards here, or do you value keeping the cross switchers?
I 100% value the cross switchers every single time. I mean, I don't fault Joseph for this. I'm pretty sure the game is locked after this happens. I'm fairly certain that there's no way Hale ends up taking 3 prizes before time runs out. With what? An unpowerable Rotom, no Pidgeot. Are you going to attach 2 double turbos to Snorlax and hope you collapse your way into the win? There's no way to pull this off. This is effectively game over.
See how it plays out. Moonlight Shuriken, 2 prizes taken. And what does Hale even have to work with? Not a lot at all. I mean, there's an Arven in the hand, but I guess you do have the energy if you want to retreat this Rotom. Will be the Arven played, so this can grab maybe the Defiance Fest out of the deck. Eyeing up Super Rod as well. Will be the Bravery Charm and Super Rod, the 2 cards grabbed. And this can bring back the Pidgey and the Mimikyu, but it's actually just going to be the Mimikyu going back into the deck.
Yeah, I mean, Hale might be hoping to deck Joseph out with the remaining time by not letting him have a way to deal with Mimikyu, right? But Joseph finally has access to canceling Cologne this game. It's not priced, hasn't been discarded yet by Luxray, and we're going to see the retreat into the Mimikyu? No, into the Snorlax, interestingly enough.
I mean, if the Moonlight Shuriken's going to happen, it doesn't really matter what's in the active spot, essentially. That way you maybe play around this Greninja moving out, and then you get more water energy with Chien Pao, something along those lines. But yeah, it's just going to be the Melanie, putting some of these energy that were just discarded into play again. Finds another cross switcher. That's the 4th one in hand, I believe. Has access to that again. Subspace Swell is not quite there right now. So Subspace Swell is only dealing 150 damage right now, I believe. Or it's doing 180. So it's not quite there. Or it's 20 more, sorry. So it is 140 damage. So not quite enough to take a knockout on the Rotom. But over time, if you maybe draw into a few more cards, is Joseph considering concealed cardsing this away? I don't really know if I value the 2 cards there over getting rid of the energy, but what difference does it really make?
Exactly, right? I feel like under normal circumstances, if this was game 1, absolutely. But this is game 3. Joseph, all he needs to do is make sure that he stays ahead these 2 prizes by the time the timer is over, and then he's going to win. So I love this. Grabbing Spiritomb, making sure that Hale cannot draw any extra cards. Essentially, Joseph is playing the control game as well. And gets to Super Rod back the energies immediately, gets used out of that, full use out of the Super Rod. So I'm pretty sure the game is locked for Joseph at this point.
Joseph could even just win this game through normal standards with how well things are going. I mean,
pretty much.
There's Switch in the hand, Cross Switcher as well. You got the Rotom potentially. I mean, the Rotom isn't really doing anything, but it's still a free 2 prizes on the bench if you're able to gust it up.
Yeah, and then with Spiritomb essentially locking Rotom out of the game, right? Who's playing the control game now, Hale?
It will be 2 cards discarded, and yeah, Hale's changing the full approach. 4 cards hit off Misfortune Sisters. Those are all getting discarded here.
Now, you gotta wonder, what is Hale playing to, right? Like, he must have a win condition that he has come up with. I'm having trouble finding it myself, but there have been a lot of resources used by Joseph, right? A lot of switching cards, the cross switchers, the super odd, the V-Star. So maybe you can trap something in the active and go pass, 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 pass 30 times into a win, maybe?
Potentially. I mean, with how many switching cards are still available. Yeah, it was great to get rid of that escape rope. I mean, there's 9 minutes left. So not only do you have to do that, but you got to get through these next 9. You got to do it within a short time clock. Irida being played. So, I mean, Joseph has recently been playing just a lot of cards from hand and just discarding things. I mean, you gotta play to your strategy, play to your options at this point. Let's take a look and see how many switching cards are left. So we know the switch is in hand. We see escape rope already queued to the top of the deck.
2 cross switchers available in hand as well. I think there might be a switch.
There
Yep,
is.
there's a switch left.
It's
Let's
going to
see.
be the Lost Vacuum. Lost Vacuum could get rid of the...
Bravery Charm from the active, plus a switch. You get the KO.
Sure.
6, 8, 10, 12. No, I guess you need to bench the Luminion if you do that, but I think at this point, you're completely okay doing it.
With 5, there's 160 damage in play, so it will be perfect. It will be enough to take the knockout on Snorlax.
Oh,
if
yeah,
that is
there
the
you go.
choice. Yeah.
All right.
So energy
Now-
switch going on. It's actually going to be the Collapse Stadium leaving out of play, and that's actually just it. It's just going to pass the turn back over.
That was a very interesting decision.
Yeah. That just feels like more cards. I mean, of course, you can't shuffle your hand into your deck, but it's more cards technically, right, that are just
Yeah.
lost out.
I mean, does it matter though, right? 2 prizes up. How can Hale possibly revert the situation? Defiance Vest will reduce the damage. That Nest Ball will likely get played into another Snorlax. Sure, this is powering up Palkia's damage output more. Maybe tempting Joseph to like fully bench and extend for a knockout of 200 damage on the active Snorlax, and then you go counter catcher and trap whatever Joseph benched that cannot attack you, something along those lines.
So there is now enough bench Pokemon, enough Pokemon in play that if one more bench Pokemon comes down, Rotom can go down with this cross switcher into Subspace Swell. And with how actively Joseph has just been playing these Iridas down, grabbing cards out, it feels like he still just wants to go on the offensive and try and take these 6 prize cards.
Yeah, which is fair game, right? Definitely fair game. As we see, the Canceling Cologne. I really like this because if the Canceling Cologne is in the hand, it cannot be Misfortune Sisters away. I think that's really, really clutch.
That's true. It can still be discarded by Luxray, right? So there's
Yeah.
sort of that back and forth. But if you can build up a hand to be big enough, and your opponent has no support right now with Rotom being shut off, about to be knocked out, it almost seems like. So it seems like that wants to be the play. So just double checking right now. 200 damage with Subspace Swell. Double cross switcher. Rotom V coming up into the active spot in Subspace Swell. Grant Joseph 2 prize cards and is now 2 prizes away from advancing into the top 4 here in San Antonio. How can Hale put himself in a spot to get this out? The time is ticking. His back is up against the wall. How does he get out of this? Step 1 seems to be playing this counter catcher, bringing up Greninja, and just passing the turn.
Also, that switch in hand can go on the offensive once again. Just needs one more bench Pokemon, right? And then you're knocking out the Snorlax. You have the Luminion. And then you put yourself one Pokemon, one turn away from winning. I feel like you might even consider attaching to the Greninja. So you have the out onto the Mimikyu, maybe? Joseph.
I don't know how many energy cards are left. Did just draw another energy on there, so looks like Joseph now got a prize penalty. Now,
On
in this
phase
case,
of
though,
play.
it won't affect Hale because Hale isn't taking prize cards, but it will just be the counter catcher again, bringing up this Greninja into the active spot. Now, is there a final switching card? Joseph just went down to 1 prize card left. Oh, I think it's there. If Oh, wait, hold on. The math is not. No, the math is not. But
needs to find Lost Vacuum. That's the key card. Lost Vacuum and Energy will grant Joseph the win in this very peculiar Game 3.
Even
right?
Boss's Orders would do it. You can boss up the Mimikyu, then play the Canceling Cologne, and then from there,
that works too. That works too. See the Counter Catcher onto Luminion. Not Qianbao, which is very peculiar. I feel like I would have liked to see a Counter Catcher onto a Qianbao, have them commit an Energy, and then you go Counter Catcher again. Something along those lines.
There is still a Vacuum in the deck. I don't think there's any more switching cards, but
energies.
Again, Boss plus Cologne will get you the cards you need to win this game. And with 4 minutes left, it's not looking too good for Hale.
You can manually power up the Luminion, Melanie onto it, and then next turn, you can go like attach and then wait a turn, and then go Melanie. I feel like Joseph knows he's so close to winning the game, right? That's why he's digging with Greninja here.
Now, where do you put this energy? I mean, honestly, you could just put the energy on like Greninja. I mean, I honestly don't even think you want to put the energy there. It's just give yourself options. I mean, your play is Canceling Cologne, right? So if your play is going to be the Canceling Cologne and take the knockout, you might as well do it when you have Boss's Orders in hand as well. And your opponent can't really afford to put Snipe Fang down because then you're just going to make this play. It will still be the Melanie, so drawing 3 cards. Again, looking for that Boss's Orders.
Escape Rope.
Oh, that's it.
Escape Rope. That will be game. That's okay. Yeah,
the
with the
Lost
Lost Vacuum, gets the KO. Joseph wins against Snorlax. What a series. I feel like if you had told me we're going to see 3 games this series, I would not have believed you, Ethan.
I wouldn't have believed you, and quite interesting games those were. A lot to look back on. Joseph coming out on top, advancing into the top 4. A great run for Hale, though. Played such a unique deck. I have to give him props. Looking at this list the entire time, you saw how it functions, how powerful Pidgeot is when it's set up. Not a shabby finish at all. Adding onto that resume, a regional champion, and now another top 8 under his belt.
Indeed, and now this does set our top 4, which is pretty cool to see. But what a game we just saw. That early aggression, that Hydro Break that we saw over and over in that very long, drawn-out Game 1. Qianbao's Hail Blade attack as well, dealing a lot of damage, taking that very annoying Luxray, right? Like, Luxray looked like to be the MVP of this series in that first game. And then that Cheryl, that Clutch Cheryl healing the Pidgeot EX, putting out of range of Palkia V-Star and being aggressive, right? Aggro Pidgeot did happen.
Pidgeot putting some work. Hey, who says control decks can't take prize cards? Pidgeot has showed us this weekend that could be a great attack with the Misfortune Sisters on Hale's side, but as we've seen in Pokemon TCG, luck enough isn't enough to win you series, especially here in top 8.
And I believe that was the cross switcher that prompted Joseph to be like, you know what, on to Game 2. I am not winning this one. And then what a Game 2. It felt like Hale was under control despite losing the Pidgey, had a lock on his opponent, dealing with the Mimikyu, using up the V-Star. Rough game 2.
I mean, you hate to say it, but I think it came down to that double prize penalty. It's a completely different game. You saw Joseph had enough gas in the tank to take that last prize, but with how things shaped up, that's just the nature of Pokemon TCG. And we headed into Game 3 with 15-ish minutes on the clock, and the 3 rare candy not being taken. There's the Peonia. You can kind of see the 3 rare candy left in the prizes. Now, don't know how huge of a difference it would have made, but yeah, you saw just Joseph was able to take all 6 prize cards because without that Pidgey off this deck, he really struggles to set up, especially when Rotom is shut off thanks to Spiritomb.
Yeah, even if Hale had grabbed one of those rare candies, there was no guarantee that there was no way to get the Pidgeot that turn. He would have relied on Rotom draw, and we saw Joseph like really be very aggressive in that Game 3, and he ended up winning this game despite getting a double prize penalty himself, right?
That's the nature of Pokemon. Back and forth, intense. That's why I love watching these matches, Pablo. It's always a treat to see how things are going to play out. And with that, we have our top 4. 4 competitors left. Azul, Garcia, Griego, Grant Manley. We have, as of course, our last matchup here, who we just featured on, Joseph, and of course, Grant Hayes. big names, new names, names that we've seen on and off. This is going to be a great top 4.
2 Charizard decks left, along with a Palkia, which I'm pretty sure was on no one's bingo card, yet here it is, and a Giratina V-Star. Now, we have a Charizard mirror match, and we have Giratina against Palkia. So we're guaranteed a Charizard in the finals, but what happens between Palkia and Giratina? You have Radiant Greninja on one side, you have the Palkia that does a lot of damage, but Giratina can 1-KO it. There's Path to the Peak to be dealt with. What happens and how does that match even play out? It's definitely not one I've tested recently.
It's not one that we've seen a lot, but we're going to be seeing it go down here. 4 players.